Schalke 0. Oh, they've done it! Steven Terodde, an instant hero! Can you believe it? Plenty attacking! No! The comeback is complete! A stunning second half from Schalke!
Feels so good to listen to that song on a Victory Monday. Blau und Weiß sein Leben lang. Willkommen zum einzigen Schalke Podcast auf English. Welcome to episode 142 of SchalkeMerica. I'm your host, Richard Carmen. Joining me as always, co-host Jack Mangan on this Victory Monday.
Yes, happy Victory Monday indeed. And a Monday, not a Wednesday like last week, which was my fault. But we're back to our typical time. Big match against our friends in Nuremberg, and very much needing a bounce back performance. I think after that disappointing Sao Paulo result, at least in my opinion, I thought it wasn't a convincing performance from us, and here we are on Monday, and I think we're probably pretty pleased with what we saw.
Yeah, back to victory, back to scoring goals, and this time against an opponent of equal stature, I would say, in terms of the table. Certainly an interesting performance we're going to get into. It's that performance. I agree with you. At St. Pauli was very disappointing. Obviously, a lot of people were hurt, and we would have played to what we thought was good enough. Yeah, we had a better second half showing against Bergstaller and company, but it wasn't good enough ultimately. And in this game, we wonder what we're going to see against Nuremberg, and we got an emphatic answer with that. All good. Starts the weekend off right. I mean, obviously, it's a Friday game. We get a win. We got Schalke TV. Life is good at the moment. This week.
No, the Schalke TV coming in clutch because, like we said, this was another Friday game, and there's been several midweek games that have been obviously difficult for Richard and I to watch live. So finally got that up and running, and that's been huge, and will continue to be clutch throughout the rest of the season, I presume.
It will. I agree. So let's get into the game. 4-1 victory in this one. Look at the lineups in this one. We are the home teams. Frazel in goal with a back three, the similar back three, familiar back three, I should say. Militiao, Itakura, and Kaminski. Went with the wing backs of Ranfel on the right, Oyan on the left. Midfield three of Salazar, Paulsen, and Idrizi. And then up top, you had Peringer and Cherlinov. Thoughts on the lineup? Obviously, the insertion of the guy we've been talking about all year long, wanting to see more minutes, Idrizi get into the lineup. But what else? Anything else in the starting lineup that kind of perked your interest?
Oh yeah, all kinds of things going on in this lineup this time. Idrizi obviously being one of the bigger ones, in the sense that as you and I have said, we anticipated Idrizi and Flick and maybe being more involved than they ultimately were. Based on their involvement kind of maybe late last season, but obviously some of the transfer moves that were made changed that picture a little bit. But even so, I mean, I don't think we've seen many like Idrizi cameos late in matches or anything. He's been pretty much out of the picture for the most part. So nice to see him not only get on the pitch, but in a starting capacity to get a significant amount of time. But also Ranfel back into the starting lineup. So somebody that I wasn't super impressed with early in the season. But however many matches ago that was, he made that mistake. But in that one game, I forget actually who that
2 games ago. Was it Sennhausen?
Perhaps it was, yeah. And then, but then had a really strong second half. And based on Aiden's performances the last couple, which have been very unconvincing. It could just be a rotation thing, but wouldn't be surprised if it was based on form or whatever. And Ranfel, getting a starting look here, and then the man that you've been talking about, Richard, all season. I mean, you've continuously mentioned, hey, maybe we can get Cherlinov to start up top in the attack, which we've kind of known is potentially an option based on some things have happened with him in the past or whatever, but like it's hasn't happened yet. We haven't seen it, I don't think, a single time. Did we see it preseason at all?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, finally, there's enough depth issues where we get the look, and you know what? Not bad.
You look
Not
good
bad for him at all. I mean,
got the moves like Darko.
I mean, what were your thoughts? I mean, anything else that I didn't mention? I think I probably covered the main points. But how did you feel about Cherlinov in particular?
I
being
thought
that
he
left?
was I thought he was good, very good. Dancing around, he made some slick moves. Not alone his goal that he scored, but he made some moves throughout the game, setting up some plays. I thought he was active. I thought because of his activity that he was providing, allowed Salazar some freedom to also be more attacking than normal. We saw another strong game from Salazar. In turn, that kind of gave Idrizi some opportunities as well. Ranfil was marauding down that pitch. You arguably saw him going down the right-hand side almost as many times as Oyan on the left, which we rarely said with those two players in the lineup. It was good, and then obviously, the back three's stable, and obviously with the goalkeeper, which didn't have his greatest game, I think, but Perringer. Again, an opportunity to see him up top to maybe make a name for himself. And we finally maybe see a side of Perringer that we were hoping we would see maybe last few games or so, Jack. I thought his performance tonight or this weekend was particularly a strong one compared to what it was previously.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because when we have Terada and Bolter starting together, Terada tends to be the one who's pinned a little bit higher, more of a target man type, and Bolter kind of drops deeper into the midfield to help, close some things down and try to force some turnovers and that sort of thing. And last week when we had Pieringer and Dadashov, they seem to be very more similar profiles, but they're both kind of not as mobile, both kind of staying high. I feel like we missed sort of that duo in terms of the styles. And I thought that Cherlinov provided sort of that Bolter role for this, but actually probably even more mobile and a little bit more energetic in a lot of areas, and maybe better stamina too in terms of like his pace and everything. And so I thought that he was able to drop deep and help some things out, which allowed kind of Pieringer to do what I'd like to do ideally. But to Pieringer specifically, I thought this was a better performance from Pieringer. Really impressed by his feet at times. He's got really tidy feet, great ball control for a big man up top. So would have liked to see him maybe hit the target on a couple more opportunities, and there's plenty of room for improvement in his link-up play and stuff. But certainly a better performance from him. And I think that Cherlinov Pieringer combo actually works surprisingly well.
It's a good B option. We can get to if maybe it's an A option. We'll get to that. But
against the league's best defense, I might add, coming into this game.
4 goals.
Well, just in terms
defense.
of there's different ways to measure best defense other than just.
And Pieringer's not the slowest guy either. He's not Dadashov, right? He's not Terada. He's got some pace to him a little bit for a big guy, which was good to see because we needed that. And him pairing alongside Cherlinov, I think they work very well together. I think. Looking real quick at our friends, the road team, Matenya in goal with the back four of Valentini, Schindler, Sorensen, and Hanverker. They went with holding 6 of a familiar name, Johannes Geis, back in our lives. Then you had Nürnberger and Kraus along with Daly in the midfield, and then up top you had Chernoff and Schaffler. Geis back in our lives. I think that's where we got him originally, right? Or was that Dusseldorf? I don't remember, but good to see Geis again. We had some not so great times together, but it seems like his life is doing well for him right now at Nuremberg. Thoughts on him and the lineup?
Yeah, but even though we've had our differences in the past, I wish him well. When he's going out there for the match, I hope he has a good match. Break a leg, so to speak. But the great thing about Johannes Geis is there is of course the Schalke curse where our former players always score against us, but that really only pertains to players that typically did score goals for us, and he certainly was not one of those. So honestly, I was thrilled to see Johannes Geis out there because he's going to be a relatively immobile, purely ball playing central midfielder. And this is a midfield for us in particular that's very active. I mean, like Zalazar and Idrizi, like they're going to be running at you. So me seeing Johannes Geis out there, I love that personally. Because at least in my opinion, like I personally did not like him in his time at Schalke. I did not think he was particularly great, and I think his actual kind of like profile as a player matches up quite well for us, stylistically. So anyway.
Yeah, he's someone who I always advocated to go to be on Schalke. But when he joined Schalke, the fit never worked. Obviously, he's known for his free kick ability and stuff like that. But again, the time with us didn't pan out as well as many of us had hoped, at least. So anyway, get into the game. What result, right? 4-1.
Sorry, one more comment real quick.
Yeah, please.
First of all, I think it's hilarious that they have a player called Nurnberger
I did too.
on their team. Secondly, I actually thought he was one of their better players. He was one of their more impressive people. So I mean, credit there. But yeah, thought that was amusing.
I did a double take because when he scored the goal, and I'm looking for his name, I'm like Nuremberg. Wait, what's going on here? And I'm like, oh, Nuremberger. What the heck? So no, yeah, I thought it was hilarious when I saw that. It's funny because I've seen another team had a similar thing. I don't remember anymore now. I was in the Zweite Liga, but another team that had a player with a similar name. So funny how that works out. Hey, maybe that's a perfect fit for him, right? He should just stay there for life. I don't know. Sven Piepenbroek back on the bench again. Gramozzi's still out with COVID, positive COVID symptoms. This time, obviously, working well for us. It was a good game, right? 4 goals for us overall. The game started early, and what I liked from the onset of the match was that the pressing seemed to be back in our lives. And what you saw from the beginning, in my opinion, I don't know what you thought, Salazar, Piringer, and Idrizi were all involved early on and throughout the game. Were you seeing the same things early on with Schalke, at least with the start of the first 10, 15 minutes of the game?
I mean, yes. So first of all, I mean, I felt like a much higher line of confrontation on average. I mean, like when they're taking a goal kick out, like our strikers are basically at the edge of the goal kick, you know, the 18-yard box, like, and just kind of like slowly following people. I mean, like we were playing a pretty high block, I felt like, relative to how we play sometimes. And then also, yeah, I mean, like during the St. Pauli match, like there were brief windows of time, maybe like a 10-minute window in the first half and a 15-minute window in the second half, where we seemed to be playing with that kind of emphasis on our game, you know, like behind the ball. And then it just disappeared for the entire rest of the match, which I don't know if that was like a tactical instruction or for some reason we just like could not keep that up. But
right.
Yeah, much more of that from the beginning, and I think was maintained throughout. You know, people arriving in numbers, first of all, people putting pressure on ball carriers, and then also you know, really closing down those who are receiving the balls and receiving those passes, closing them down quickly so that they don't have, you know, a lot of time to, like, you know, take a touch or two before there's a defender on it. Like, I mean, like they got somebody on their back as they're receiving the pass, and that just made it a lot more difficult for them to establish a rhythm, I felt like, and we created a lot of turnovers that way, which you know, led to a lot of transition play, which once again I feel like benefited us because it was one-way traffic in the midfield. I felt like we could kind of do whatever we wanted, which was so different from how things usually go. I don't know what they were doing in terms of not being able to counter press, I guess, because sometimes we struggle to, you know, string a couple passes together, but we really did a nice job in that area.
Yeah, no, I agree about that 100%. And the press was working effectively. And you know what? One thing we've said during our victories of recent is that the team is feeling well when Malik Thiaw presses up, right? And in the 9th minute, he got involved offensively, did a nice chip pass over the top to Salazar. It was a contact between him and Geis. Salazar goes down. There were questions about a penalty. It looked shoulder to shoulder to me. It's a good no call for me, but good to see Malik Thiaw get involved early on in the game. You knew that good things were coming, that he was already in the offensive mood compared to last week against St. Pauli, huh?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think we've talked about that a couple of times, and that's kind of like a cheap metric. But yeah, we it does seem to feel like when the team is slightly more confident, that we tend to see those center backs being more willing to make one of those like marauding runs or get forward and kind of be involved around the edge of the box and everything. So, and you know, and honestly, all 3 of those guys kind of have the ball skills to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like Kaminsky's pretty slick on the ball, obviously, and Idikura is as well. So, yeah, I'm not opposed to that every once in a while.
I think those who play Football Manager, you probably pen them all as a ball-playing defender, which is rare. You've seen all 3. I mean, the better teams, the teams like Man City who all play ball possession, they can all do that. But other than that, most teams usually have those center backs that don't really – if they may have one ball-playing defender, and that's about it, not 3 of them on the lineup at the same time. So it was nice. It's nice that we have that back there, along with Frazel, who typically is pretty good with his feet, typically. We'll get to him. But I thought it was going to be smooth sailing, and then all of a sudden, like, you know, around the quarter-hour mark, Nuremberg started getting some offensive opportunities. Nuremberger, one of the guys we mentioned, had a cross in the back post. Luckily, nobody was there. This was around the 15th minute or so. And then in the 16th minute, Nuremberg, I forget who makes a pass from the left-hand side into the box, hits Schaffler in the head, His header hits the post, and we luckily cleared away. And they ended up calling it offsides. So it hit the post, the rebound comes out, and they score a goal. They call it offsides. I actually think it was an incorrect call. I think he was actually onside. I don't know why they didn't review it or anything like that. They already called it, I guess, the blue whistle. The goal came after the whistle, but close play again. Schaffler again above the center backs and getting a good header on the ball and hits the post there. Had me worried at that point when I see, two waves of attack by Nuremberg, that maybe this game was going to be a lot tougher or as tough as I had anticipated prior to the match.
Yeah, if it's the play I'm remembering, I think he was on.
He certainly was on.
Yeah, because like that didn't the ref like blow the whistle right as that shot was coming in? That would have been the goal.
Yep.
So they kind of like got this. Yeah, I think you're correct. Yeah,
and the manager was furious after that because it was a goal. I mean, probably wouldn't have happened. Frauza probably would have tried harder.
Yeah. When I saw it live, I couldn't tell, but I'm pretty sure they showed a replay of it, and it seemed like he was fairly clearly onside. So I'm surprised. I mean, I don't know what the rules are once again, if it's like you have to have a clear and obvious error to intervene for the VAR or whatever, but like kind of sucks. I mean, just a lot of goal almost one of those situations like the Santa one in the cup, right? Where it's like the whistle's blown as it's getting shot, so it can't really count, but that kind of thing. Yeah. So definitely a warning shot across the bows though.
It was, and I was curious to see how the team would do. They kind of re-engage the press once again. One of the guys we've been talking about at the beginning, Idrizi, first glimpses of real good action in the 20th minute. Found the ball. I guess got the ball off of a clearance from Nuremberg. There's a nice give and go with Owen on the left-hand side. Feeds it to to Peringer, who gives it to Cherlinov. He does some dancing moves, breaks two guys' ankles, takes a shot, forces the keeper to make a save. Rebound goes over to Owen in the middle of the pitch in the 6-yard box, scores the goal just like that. 20th minute, great time to get a goal there. Great plays by Idrizi for getting the ball, doing the give and go with Owen. Peringer to find Cherlinov, and then Cherlinov just dancing around Owen, putting the ball away. It was just a great play overall all the way around. Thoughts on the goal? The first goal,
I mean, like a lot of different people involved, some nice touches, and Cherlinov doing what we've seen him do on a number of occasions, which is, kind of on the edges of the box, be able to show some flashes, some really nice footwork. Sometimes it comes off for him. Sometimes he kind of dribbles himself a little bit too deep and gets into trouble. But in this occasion, he kind of cut on the inside and sold that inside move and really got the defender to bite on that, and then cut it back towards the baseline to open up that shot. And went for goal himself and hit it with enough pace from close enough in that the keeper wasn't able to direct it properly. And it just sort of bounces out for Owen, who makes a nice, he really had to kind of like half volley that, kind of get his leg up pretty high to get it in. But nice finish. And we love a Thomas Owen goal. I mean, he provides enough of them, in the assist category. Nice to see him get one himself. And nice play from several guys there, and nice play from Cherlinov as well.
Yeah, and I noticed that after that goal that it would seem like we were playing a little bit more swagger, which we haven't seen in a long time. It seemed doing a little bit of trick passes here and there, and definitely hadn't playing with intention, which we haven't seen, especially in the last game. And I think in particular, Idrizi, Cherlinov, and Peringer looked very good in the attack. I mean, we kind of alluded to it during the lineup that especially Peringer and Cherlinov, they seem to work. They're like a perfect complement for each other, very similar to like Bulter and Tarota. And they work well. Idrizi was in the mix as well. Obviously, Salazar as well. So I thought that the attack looked more lively than it had in a long time in this game. And in particular, right after that goal, we continued to push and push and push. They came up big, I thought.
Yeah, and Idrizi in particular, I think, is kind of showing that, he can be an option off the bench as a more like attacking-minded sub in that midfield. I still think that, what Drexler offers you in terms of his well-rounded nature, I think is very valuable. And I think if there was a deficiency from Idrizi in this game, it was on the defensive end in this game. Not that he wasn't involved, in applying some pressure with people, but there were some moments I felt like he was mildly out of position, or wasn't exactly aware of his positioning as well as it could have been to kind of cut off an angle properly, wasn't keeping the shape. That's more like once they get into our final third kind of a thing. And they're trying to break us down with passing more than just kind of, some of the open play. But going forward, I thought, he'd absolutely provided the spark. And we saw that once again late last year a little bit. Like, he had that in him. And so it's once again surprising that it's taken this long to get him a start or really see him in almost any capacity, because we kind of feel like he could provide this. And I'm surprised we haven't seen more half hour cameos for him, right? Like in second halves of matches potentially.
Yeah, only thing now I'm missing is Timo Becker, right? But we won't touch that one
There
today.
you go.
A few minutes later, maybe like 10 minutes after the goal or so, we had almost an identical play to the goal where Cherlinov, again dancing around down in the box, creates a shot. He made like a little dinky move where he tried to go through two guys, whatever. It somehow found the ball to Idrizi. Idrizi takes a shot, saved by the keeper, goes out to Ranfel. Ranfel one times it hits off the post crossbar angle and gets out, and they clear it away. But I mean, again, Cherlinov causing headaches. Idrizi in the mix again, and then Ranfel with a nice shot. I mean, he just inches missed it from going to make a beautiful goal. Wonderful attack again, and it's like seeing we're relentless, which I'd love to see, because in the past we've rested on our morals really and sat back. We kept attacking, which I loved.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this is kind of what I was getting at last week a little bit in the St. Pauli matches. And once again, maybe I was being a little bit harsh on the team, given that it was a 2-1 result, and there was a lot of statistics you could look at from that match that made it seem like it was fairly even. I felt like it was not a convincing performance at all. And it did not feel like we had any sort of control of that match, and that we were just kind of hanging on for a lot of that.
Yep.
And I think that's been our criticism. Part of our criticism of this team for a lot this season is that, like, even in some of the games where we're getting results, we don't really feel like we really have that much of an upper hand in them. And it's very much kind of 50-50 until we find a way to get something. And I felt like we outplayed Nuremberg like fairly convincingly. It doesn't mean they didn't have good spells at times, but I felt that we could get into their final third, especially like pretty much whenever we wanted to. Like I said, that midfield area in particular was one-way traffic. They couldn't bog us down centrally that often, especially in transition. And it was a much more convincing performance. A lot of danger from a lot of guys.
I think this is almost the opposite of the last game, right? Minus the 2 goals late in the game, it was 2-1 for majority of the game, and I thought, much like St. Pauli last week against us, though the scoreline was close, I thought we were the superior team, as St. Pauli were the superior team last week. Like you mentioned, we were doing so many things well. They could rarely muster anything offensively. We just seemed to have control and play with more onus on the offensive end, and doing like nice little passes here and there. We're passing much better than we had before. The percentages doesn't show it, but we were making more passes with intent in this game. And I thought, I agree with you. It looked like we were the more dominant team, despite the scoreline. Obviously, at the end, it helps to put the 2 goals, and it kind of made things seem like the way they were. But yeah, 2-1 at that point, until late in the game, we looked still the dominant team, and I didn't feel worried that they were going to come back and bite us at the end, right? Like in the past, we've done that, and this game didn't feel like that. And I know in the St. Pauli game, they probably weren't scared that they were going to get drawn in that game. So,
yeah, maybe we should have been more nervous about that. But yeah, it wasn't one of those matches when it was, for example, 2-1 ultimately, like that, where I was like, oh, we need that insurance goal. I didn't have that feeling as much as I typically do in a lot of Schalke matches. One brief aside, just because you mentioned nice passing, I just wanted to mention this because I love Thomas Owen so much. He plays this ball occasionally that is just like long lead ball, like powered up, like lead pass. That's like a daisy cutter. Like it doesn't bounce. It just looks like it glides over the ground on this absolute rope. And he kind of like winds up for it sometimes. And when he had one of those, I think fairly early in the match, that may have been to Cherlinov or somebody, and it was just gorgeous. And I'm sorry, I'm just obsessed with that man. He's my favorite.
Do you need a moment?
I'm good.
Well, it was smooth sailing up until Frazel in the 34th. So Malik Thiaw passes back to Frazel, which they've done many times this season. Frazel was a little nonchalant and tries to like chip it back to Thiaw, but it gives it right to, who was it? Schaffler? No, it was Shermanoff, or what was the name? I wrote it down here somewhere. Where is it? Heck, is this? I forget it. Yeah, sure enough. Point blank. And he's forced to make a big save, which he does. But I mean, this is one thing I talked about before. Like, he's supposed to be really good with his feet, but occasionally he gets too cocky, makes a mistake. And I thought that's what happened in this particular incident. Could have been a huge blunder. Wasn't the first blunder in the game, or wouldn't have been the last blunder, I should say. But we dodged a bullet right there, because all the momentum would have been gone had they scored.
The reason I'm laughing so much is that, I rewatched this moment this evening, and It makes no sense. It's not even that kind of situation where there's a back pass to the keeper and then there's like, like a striker like closing him down very quickly and the keeper sort of underestimates how much time he has and then gets rushed into a bad pass and gets deflected or something.
No.
He wasn't really being closed down. He just turns towards his teammate.
It almost looked like a no look. It almost looked like a no look. Just like
he turns towards Malik Chow, who is the teammate that is being like directly marked by that guy, who is like and then just kind of hits this like chip pass that goes like half the distance to Chow, like directly to the. I don't understand what that was.
Yeah,
or what that decision was. It was such a weird play. Yeah, and luckily we didn't have to pay for it because I think it almost caught. If it was Shoronov, like you said, I think it almost caught him by surprise ever so slightly, and Franz was able to like take a step out, cut down the angle, and ultimately blocked it. But very easily could have been a goal, and it would have been very cheaply conceded. So thankfully we avoided that. That was such a strange moment from Frazel.
Yeah, no, it certainly was. And luckily that wasn't the worst taste in our mouth. That was the worst taste of our mouth in the first half, I should say, because the first half ended with some hopefulness, I guess. In stoppage time, Ranful forced a turnover, led a breakaway, found Idrizi, one-touch pass, takes a shot, forced a great save by the keeper. You could argue if he shot to either corner, probably would have gone in. But, I mean, still made Matenya force him to make a save. It was nice to see Ranful stop a play and lead an attack, and then Idrizi with the quick step and take a shot. All around, I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly one of Ranful's kind of highlight moments from this match, as you said, is the one that dispossesses the opponent and counters and has just kind of a lot of space to run into. So he just kind of keeps going and takes his time and ultimately finds sort of, that counter run of Idrizi, who honestly, gets a pretty good effort on there. He kind of got passed into a little bit of a telephone booth. Like I think if he would have tried to take a touch or two, he probably would have been dispossessed himself. So he just kind of got the shot off quickly. And so, yeah, I think under the circumstances, it was a pretty good effort from Idrizi there. And yeah, nice play from Ranful.
Absolutely. And we go to the half up 1-0. Before I get to that, I want to give a shout out to Pascal in the chat. And also want to give a shout out to Tony, who's been commenting on some of our videos online on YouTube. So, shout out to both of you guys. Up 1-0 to halftime. I felt very comfortable the way the scoreline was. Yeah, they had a few opportunities. We had a little mistake there with Frazel, but overall, I felt very confident with what we were doing. I love what I saw in the attack in particular. And I'm not sure what it was, or maybe Nuremberg was having an off game, but the players that we had in this game starting, they just seemed to work whatever for each other and were creating opportunities. Like I mentioned, because of the activity and the action by Peringer, Chirlonov, and Idrizi kind of freed up Salazar, and Salazar was very active as well. You got to see both wingbacks get involved as well. So it's just a good performance, I thought, overall. What are your thoughts?
One of the things that was really interesting to me, and maybe you had a different impression from this match, but the transition play and sort of the attacking play in general was working so well that Oyan was often kind of bypassed in attack. So often it's kind of bogged down that he's able to kind of get forward and kind of like pivot back around us and then receive the pass to kind of play in the ground. And so often like he'd play a ball if somebody else would, and we'd counter, and he would never catch up to the play. So he actually like wasn't the one ultimately, providing that final ball in or whatever. And I think, to some extent, like, yeah, you would like that because he's so good at those kind of like, delivery from wide areas that maybe we were missing a little bit of that in this game. But I think it also like spoke to how well we were playing that he wasn't even able to be involved as much because the people that were ahead of him were doing such a nice job.
Yeah, exactly. He didn't have that many opportunities, yet we still look good. I think I agree. The complement of players around him were actually outperforming what they normally do. And because of that, yeah, there were times where I just bypassed him because there were opportunities and they were successful. So they kept doing it. And he just had to, play catch up, as opposed to in the past where we just rely solely on him to, hey, go create something. We'll try to catch up to you. It was a nice change of pace. Not that don't want to see Oyan push up, because I do. He is arguably our best player, our best passer. But if you don't have to rely on him and you have some other people you can lead the way, that's a nice problem to have. And it's we hadn't been able to say that all season long. Even in some of our victories, I thought we can get to this at the end of the game, but this is one of our most complete victories, I think, this season against not a team like Sandhausen. It's a team that's pretty competent, best defense in the league, like you mentioned. So good performance, I thought, so far in the first half. And then starting the second half, I was confident that we were going to be able to do much of the same, right? I wasn't too worried about that. And then in the 49th minute, Valentini makes a move on said Owayan. It wasn't even it was like almost a shoulder fake. Freed himself up for a left-handed cross into the box. Goes back post to Schaffler. Schaffler heads it back down to Nuremberger, who scores a goal 1-1. And I'm like, man, that's a punch in the stomach. I didn't feel like, here we go. Like, had they scored early in the game when Rafa was a mistake, that would have been different, I think. But so it happened so early in the second half. I was just like, okay, it's a goal. Let's get back into it. What were your thoughts after that goal?
Yeah, I mean, like, decent ball in the box, first of all. And then I thought that was a really smart play by Schaffler to kind of turn his body position around and be able to head that back into space. And Nuremberger did a really nice job kind of like holding that position near the top of the box and kind of letting the defense collapse on that and kind of, making that trailing kind of brief run into space and finishing that off. So, yeah, nice move from Nuremberger there, obviously. Yeah, I mean, they kind of leveled things back up. It's certainly not the start you wanted to have to the second half. I guess the way I kind of felt at the time, though, was that, once again, not a lot of clear-cut chances for Nuremberg in the first half. Didn't mean that they didn't have a couple nice moments of decent spells, especially they had one, I think, maybe I forget exactly when it was, probably 5 minutes or so up until about the 40th minute, kind of late in that half where they looked decent for a bit. I think that was probably maybe that Idrisi play that you were talking about. But yeah, certainly made you a little bit nervous at that point that maybe, they would have made some adjustments and be able to control the second half more now that they got that cheap goal early on. All they would need is, maybe kind of something in the typical run of play for them to make the difference. So, yeah, I was very curious how we were going to respond to that one.
Yes. And I was just reading some of the comments here. Interesting comments here about Latza not being in the lineup in this one. And William says, really feels like we are a better team when Latza's not playing. Hate to say that. We kind of agreed to this last time, right? We thought that makes more sense to have Paulson in there and maybe Drexler or Salazar than Latza. What are your thoughts?
I think we've been pretty consistent in saying that Donny Latza has not done anything this season to guarantee or necessitate his inclusion in the starting 11. It doesn't mean he's been terrible. I just don't think he's shown anything that says he has to be, one of the first names on their team sheet in the midfield. He if healthy, as Gramatz had said in the past, right? If he's healthy, he's going to be starting. I don't think he's earned that based on his play this season. So it's not that I think that we're significantly worse when Donny Latz is in the game. I don't even know if we had enough of a sample size to really determine that definitively. But right. Yeah, I certainly don't mind seeing other people in there ahead of him at a minimum.
Yeah, and Pascal makes a good point. Latza is good for the squad and creating rivalry and kind of make sure guys don't be complacent. But just on the pitch, he's not really that important for the squad, I think. And he is a team captain, and I'm sure he provides stuff off the pitch to really get this team going. But in terms of on the pitch, just because someone's your cap doesn't mean you have to be on the pitch, right? And I think he does provide a lot for the team, and just maybe not so much on the pitch side. And I want to kind of veer away because. Sandra, Merrill, and Birch all chime in with this VOG FYI. What's going on here? Let me know what this is. I'm missing this right now. Someone mentioned this last podcast too. I'm like, what? Fill me in on that, just so I know.
These are all bots that you created to comment in the chat to boost our numbers.
Maybe that's it. Oh, that's awesome. Moving on. After the goal, you always want to see, is there a reaction? And I thought there was. Immediately after the kickoff, you see Salazar going down the pitch, leading the break. Takes a shot, as he always does. And this one was sky high. The bots took over. But it was a reaction, right? You wanted to see that. What would happen after the goal? Would it be complacent? What would it be like? And immediately saw we go for the attack, which is good to see. Yeah. Means we were in the game.
Nothing stopping Salazar from making one of those marauding runs, ignoring any of his options and teammates and just having a go. Yeah, definitely a number of occasions in this one where I think you saw, whether it was Owayan or Pieringer or somebody else, a little bit frustrated with some of the blinders that he had on in some of those moments. Probably could have incorporated his teammates more often than he chose to. But at a minimum, you don't mind seeing that sort of impetus from him, and he's one of the guys that makes a lot of things go. Certainly was the case in this one again, and he's tireless out there, man. Like, I mean, all throughout the match, he's making plays both on the offensive and defensive end that kind of ultimately boiled down to just pure hustle plays more than anything overly technical or skill based. Like, he really just puts in the effort to close down those yards or just kind of like keep that dribble going longer than maybe somebody else would. And he really opens things up.
I think that, at the beginning of the season, we probably thought, I know at least for me, that he was more of the attacking midfielder type, the number 10 role. And what he really is like a number 10 with offensive talent. And
he's more like McKennie.
Yes.
Honestly, he's more of that like box to box, like will be a nuisance defensively and
not
then kind
quite
of make that
Goretzka,
transitional.
But,
Right. Exactly.
No, and he serves us well. We always needed those kind of players in the past. And so he's filling in that role very nicely. And I think he's a lock as a starting 11 player. He should be, in our opinion. But again, another performance in this game where in a game where he just was one of the better players. And I felt the goal was coming. I wasn't worried after they scored. And sure enough, in the 66th minute, we get a corner kick. Schaffler, the striker for Nuremberg, heads it out right to Idrizi. Idrizi one-times it back. Not the greatest of shots, but it hits again off of Schaffler and goes back in the goal, ironically, and scored an own goal. We'll take it. Idrizi's going to take it. It's going to boost his confidence, too, that he gets a goal, technically own goal. But you love to see that from Idrizi, again, taking his opportunities in the game. That's the second time within, several minutes where he took a shot, one at the end of the first half and now here, and this one paid off as a goal. I mean, I always refer to Gretzky. You don't get goals unless you shoot on target. So I'm happy for him, and 2-1 at that point.
We've certainly said that from time to time. Every once in a while, we're just like, I wish somebody would just have a rip every once in a while because you never know what can happen on a rebound. But I'm not convinced that was necessarily on target from Idrizi, but that's an unfortunate sequence from Schaeffler or whatever, because he made a nice play to clear that out, and then it wasn't even so much that it deflected off him. It looked like he was intentionally trying to head that to safety.
Yeah,
and either
over or
didn't
out or
really
something.
know where he was, because the thing is, like, kind of the direction of where he was trying to, like, actually put some force on that and direct it. He actually looked like he hit it in the direction he meant to. And I just think maybe he didn't hit with enough power or didn't understand where he was in relation to the goal. But an unfortunate moment from him. So, hey man, we'll take him however we could get him. I think the more important thing is that this was, even though it was kind of a lucky play, was coming on the back of, once again, decent pressure and relatively sustained pressure for a lot of this match.
No, 100%. And then I thought the head scratcher was, Idrizi gets his goal, sort of, his own goal. Certainly the goal happened because of him. And then he comes off for a flick. And it was a bittersweet moment for me because I'm like, Idrizi is actually playing well in this game. Unless he's asking to come off, why is he coming off? But on the other side, you look at it and like, well, you're bringing you've got a lead now. Bring in Flick, who's a better defender, because you just talked about how Idrizi's not as good as Drexler defensively. So you bring in someone who's more stable there. So I was conflicted on how I felt on that, because I thought Idrizi up to that point was playing a very good game and maybe not quite man of the match performance up to that point, but certainly deserved to have a few more minutes as opposed to not getting any action all season long.
Well, yeah, I mean, also it would be interesting though if he, after having basically not played all season, was just like, go full 90. Like, so in that sense, I'm not surprised that they took him out a little bit earlier to not, to not push him too hard. Also, just get some fresh legs on this one.
That's true.
And I did think it was interesting though that, generally when we do see Flick, it tends to be in the Paulson role and sort of like, the deeper 6 role. And that's not what he came in. He came in directly in the kind of a 1-for-1 swap in that Drexler Idrizi spot. So slightly different emphasis on the kind of things that Flick did. I thought Flick did a pretty good job against the ball, put some decent pressure on people. Obviously not quite as quick, maybe not quite as mobile, but did a relatively good job there. And once again, just provides a nice composed presence in possession. Makes some calmer decisions sometimes, I feel like. And so I thought he did solid in his appearance today. Nothing earth shattering, but decent.
And kind of like Pascal says, only if Idrizi can keep this kind of form, because it gives us some options in the middle, right? Obviously, our preferable back 3 or middle 3, I would say, is Paulson, Salazar, and Drexler. The question has always been who would come in place in case one of those guys go down. Paulson, obviously, Flick is the most natural guy you would think of. Then who Idrizi can make his name for now, possibly, if he can continue with this kind of style. So it's good. We need that kind of depth, and the same thing with the attack, right? Who would fill in when Tarota and Bulter go down? And Perringer is probably the obvious one because he's a striker, but who's going to complement him? Obviously we saw Dadashov last week, didn't work out. Cherlinov sounds like it's probably the right answer.
No, and listen, I got to give you props because, like I said, you're the one more than anybody I think that's been kind of banging on about that all season. Like, will we see Cherlinov in that role? And like I said, like I understood what you were saying, and like but I was just kind of like, yeah, I mean, like, well, we'll see how it goes. And it really took us, having those injuries to necessitate that. But we got, I mean, once again, small sample size, but got to look at it and seemed to make a lot of sense. So I mean, credit to you for kind of pushing that, and ultimately we got to take a look at it. So yeah.
Yeah, and the main reason really from the way I felt like that is because we needed an X factor type of player, and he's the only guy really who can do that, create his own shots and passes and stuff like that. And when he's on, Salazar gets some freedom to do whatever he needs to do. And so we actually did see that. Like Kiki Top, the new Hoppy, I called it here first. All right. Well, he did play well. That little brief cameo against St. Pauli, he looked better in that 5 minutes than Dadashov looked in the whatever time he had in that game. So just saying. Not that I'm going to discount Dadashov. Obviously, he's a young guy. He had an okay performance.
Dadashov's a body. That's what you can say about him. He's a body to have on the field.
And he's young. He'll get there. He's got the body. He'll grow into that role. So he's done well for the youth team. So so a scary incident happened in the 75th minute. You never like to see accidents happen or injuries happen. So there's a play where Nuremberg went for a shot. Frazel gets a rebound and quickly heads up play, tries to lead a break, and almost finds Cherlinov in the opposition's box. The goalie, Matenya, comes out, runs it to his defender. I mean, it looked like he knocked him out immediately. The goalie knocked out the defender. He definitely was dazed. He got cut. They were down for several minutes at the end of the game. Probably what led to all the extra stoppage time, but scary incident because I mean it looked like it was accidental. Goalie's coming out for the ball, defender's trying to fend off Cherlinov, and bam, bang, bang play, and it looked scary for a minute because it didn't look like he would. Maybe he might have been knocked out, but it seemed like I guess he'll end up being okay.
Was that Valentini? Was that the right back? Who was that?
It might have been Valentini. It's got a goatee, and Valentini does have a goatee. I think it might have been him, but I don't recall.
Yeah. It was an interesting moment because the whistle came at a kind of a disadvantageous point for Schalke in that play because we were about to have potentially numbers kind of going back into the box again after it had gotten cleared. And I think there was the sense for a couple seconds after that happened, potentially, that the guy took the opportunity with the keeper to go down easy and stop the play to like avoid Schalke having that advantage. But it became clear relatively quickly that actually something was wrong.
Yeah, you saw the replay and you're like, ooh.
Yeah. So he was down for a few minutes, and I mean those are always scary moments. So luckily that like I said, he seemed to be okay. It wasn't he didn't have to be stretchered off or anything crazy, but
So the game would continue, and at this point, all we wanted to see is make sure Schalke didn't do anything silly, like a Frazel mistake that would cause a tying goal. So we were just pretty much waiting to see the game to play out. It was, and we kept attacking, which was good to see. In the 85th minute, Itakura forced a turnover, I should say. Salazar rips it from deep, as he always does. He takes shots from distance. And we saw this a couple weeks ago, right, in the Sennhausen match. Takes a shot from distance. Goalie couldn't handle it. This time, I think it was a little bit harder, more difficult shot to stop than the last one. And forced the goalie to make a save. Ball goes right to Cherlinov, who dances around the keeper and then puts it away. Tap-in goal. 3-1. Good to see for Cherlinov. He had such a good game. And to end it on a goal like that, wonderfully done. But, credit goes to Salazar for ripping it from, like, no man's land deep. Like, who thinks Steph Curry?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's yet another play where, like, Cherlinov has his shoulder turned back towards Salazar, and he's, like, calling for it, like, like, doing the whole thing. And once again, Salazar ignores his teammates and has a rip. But this time, unlike, some other times in this match, not just from him, from other people, is able to keep it down and actually get it on frame and force the keeper to do something with it as opposed to skying it, 10 yards over the par. Hits it low, hits it hard to the corner, gets bounced out, and Cherlinov, like, really tidy feet, really nice feet to recognize that he probably wasn't able to get that shot off, dance around him, like you said, and just kind of slip that in, right next to the post. Impressive, helped with that Obayan goal early on, and I think had a really good performance overall. Certainly, I mean, here's the thing, what I would say about Cherlinov, like, suddenly you feel slightly better about our depth. And once again, one game in this position, very small sample size.
Yeah,
but like
100%.
compared to like Dadashov once again, different opponent, but like Dadashov last week, for instance, he came on the pitch, and in that performance from Dadashov, you're like, Dadashov offers you nothing. But I mean, it's not
He's
that he
a body
can't
at the
score.
end of the game.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not that he can't score a goal, but like he doesn't do anything for you really, and with or without the ball. And Cherlinov was night and day from that last week. So, huge, not just in the context of this match, but in terms of knowing concretely that could potentially be an option for the rest of the season if needed.
Yeah, that made the score 3-1 at that moment. But you thought we were trying to run out the clock and maybe go to the corners and play it away. And they kind of did that. Salazar kind of did that. But then he kept getting it to try to go and try to score another goal. And he kept going. And we kept attacking. And late in the game, Itakura from his defensive end kind of makes this run. Ends up giving it to Cherlinov or somebody. Or no, maybe it was Cherlinov. I forget who it was.
Flick.
Yeah, so it's Flick. And it kept going down the pitch. And then nice give and goes back and forth with a couple players. Gets back to Itakura from Peringer and rips a goal past the keeper. 4-1. Nice goal by Itakura. This guy has a good shooting ability. He's very decent at free kicks. We've seen that a couple times this year. Good for him to finally get a goal. Good for the team to get a fourth goal. That kind of just a resounding victory in this game. We talked about how dominant we felt at 2-1. I think the 4-1 was a fair reflection on how we felt the game went. Would you not agree?
Yeah, I would. I mean, yeah, it's not to say that maybe Nuremberg could have gotten the second one or whatever, but I feel like that scoreline is not doesn't like poorly reflect our performance in the match or anything like that. Yeah, I think we're absolutely good for all four of those goals. And this last one for me to Kerr was just kind of hilarious because as you said, he picks it up fairly, decently into his own half, kind of centrally, and makes this weird run all the way up the sideline into theirs, and then plays the flick, and for some reason the ball just keeps coming back to him. Like, he makes that cut in, kind of like what Katucci did when we were talking about that goal he scored, like dumps it down into that like zone, makes that diagonal run inside. But then Itakura plays another ball into Peringer, and it's a one-touch pass back. It's great, like one-touch passing back and forth, and then Itakura like curler into the far corner, like really nicely finished. That's
where was this all season?
I mean, seriously, it was just like a shockingly like silky, well executed, like once again one-touch passing type goal from Schalke that you just don't see that often. I, as a Nuremberg fan, I don't even know how I would feel about watching that go down, but man, good for Itakura, I guess. It was beautiful.
Yeah. So we won the game, obviously 4-1. At the time, we were temporarily in third place. Hamburg after we got a result on Sunday, and so Hamburg jumped over us based on head-to-head. And so we'll look at the Hamburg game here coming up, but where a week ago it looked like it was gonna be 7 versus 8 going into this game, now it's 3 versus 4. It's funny how the table is Zweite Liga. It's tight, right? Regensburg lost, Paderborn lost, a bunch of teams lost. St. Pauli and Darmstadt continue winning, but all of a sudden we're back in the race again for the promotion, which we talked about last week. We got to do something these 2 games. If you do nothing, it's disastrous potentially. And we showed up, and now we got a big game against Hamburg, and we know a bunch of players are out because of injury or whatever. I feel more confident now going to this Hamburg match, seeing this game against a decent opponent as opposed to what we saw at St. Pauli or even the Sandhausen match where it's a team at the bottom of the table who gives up 1 million goals. What can you read from that? But against Nuremberg, best defense in the league, we scored 4 goals, and we looked very fluid in attack with all the players. I love to see the same starting 11 into the next game just to see if we can continue that momentum. And after the game, one of our friends on Twitter, Sasha, jokingly, I'm pretty sure, says Idrizi, Peringer, and Cherlinov greater than Bulter, Terodde, and Drexler. Thoughts?
No.
No, I agree. I mean, Terodde, Peringer.
But I
was impressed. I was impressed by Peringer. I thought he holds the ball up very well. Good feet, like you mentioned. Did a lot in the game, I thought, and has more pace than Terodde. But Terodde takes those half chances and scores. He's clinical. You cannot take him off the pitch. And Bulter,
that's
a compliment.
Like, I mean, Terodde can do nothing for 80 minutes of a game, and one loose ball can bounce his way, and he's gonna finish it because his positioning, his body control, his ability to use his body to get open. I mean, there's so many things that he can just finish something out of nowhere, which is why he's valuable. Yeah, maybe more so than like the kind of things that like Cherlanov is bringing for a full 90 minutes with or without the ball. But yeah, no, I appreciate the sentiment. And yeah, this Hamburg match, man, it's gonna be a big one. And I think Hamburg, the best defense now in the league. After we just did that to Nuremberg, they did have the best defense, but I think it might be Hamburg now that has the best defense. They might be one of the only teams left that has less than 20 goals conceded this season.
Hamburg 17
Once
goals
again,
allowed.
More ways to
Paderborn from
determine
19.
best defense than just who concedes goals. But yeah. Anyway, yeah, big result. And like last week, when we were talking, I said like I'm not convinced that we are going to get promoted based on what I've seen. But what I've seen is not a lot of matches where we were in control like that. And that doesn't mean you have to score 4 goals in a match. That's not what I'm saying. But once again, like when you're watching that match, we weren't concerned about getting the insurance goal. We didn't feel like we were under threat that much. We felt like we were in control and that we could get into the final third, so much easier. And
we made attacks. We made attacks for once. It was nice.
I mean, the ball was going on the left. It was going on the right. We were able to build centrally at times.
We weren't overly reliant on Obion,
For sure. Yeah. I mean, so it was just kind of like it. My answer last week may have been different if there were more matches like this where we seemed like we actually belonged. And not only that, we were the better team with a decent handle on the game. Like, not like dominant necessarily, but like in control of the match. Yeah. And so many of these have been kind of 50-50 affairs for me. So that was a much better performance. It's the kind of performance, even if we had lost, we would have seen more of against St. Pauli last week, where it felt like we were in it at least. Yeah, huge response. And like, yes, please more of that. Once again, not necessarily the 4 goals, but just the overall performance. Once again, with and without the ball, like much more consistent pressure defensively. There's a lot of areas that were improvements from last week, and it's just frustrating that we can't see more of that because kind of repeating myself now, but like you don't have to repeat this exact thing every time. But if we got more of this, we would absolutely be in the conversation for promotion, and we still might be for promotion. But like we would absolutely be in the driver's seat for like probably first or second place if that kind of performance is what we're able to put in on a more consistent basis. Absolutely.
Yeah, if we see the same performance against Hamburg that we saw against Nuremberg, I will my sentiments of whether we get promoted or not from last week would probably change based on two good performances against 2 good opponents. Long season still, but up to this point, this weekend, we really saw nothing like this is the most complete game I think we've seen all season. Even when we had Terodde and Bolter scoring goals early in the season, or games that we scored a lot of goals, I felt this is the most comprehensive victory of all the bunches. I felt like you said, no point that I felt that the game was in jeopardy. I felt that we were creating chances. It wasn't just relying on one person. It was the whole team. Ranfol looked decent. I mean, Drizi, Salazar, Cherlanov, and Pering were doing stuff. The defense, they were okay. I mean, they didn't. It was Nuremberg really didn't create anything, but maybe it's because the midfield was playing so well. I don't know. But this was a comprehensive victory, I thought, despite Frazel making a couple of errors in this game. Hopefully he clears those up because obviously we have a capable goalkeeper behind him in Fairman. But if you don't have to change things, don't for now. I mean, I want to see the same starting 11 against Hamburg just to see if they can recreate that magic.
Yeah, and once again, I mean, because I don't think Drexler's going to be back before Christmas, right? Like, I mean, he's out for the rest of the year too, correct?
I believe so. I could be wrong.
I mean, I would still put Drexler back in, for example, like if I had the opportunity to. But yeah, I don't disagree that like I was ultimately pretty fine with this. I thought there was a lot of good performances. As you said, Ranfol had a good game again. So he's become more of a trusted option in terms of like you don't have to worry about him in a game necessarily. For sure. Yeah, it's just, I mean, just the Cherlanov thing is a revelation. It's a revelation because, yeah, you feel so much better about the depth.
Yep.
After that, he's a good stylistic complement for Pieringer. So like you really can have potentially like a 1A and 1B striker partnership if you do need to rotate that kind of a thing, which probably shouldn't be an issue because we're not playing in cup games second half of the season, but whatever. Yep. And then once again, Drizi. Hadn't seen a lot of him. Put in a good performance. Perfect performance? No, but like absolutely worthy of additional looks, and I would expect and hope to see more cameos for him. And yeah, I mean, definitely added some things to today's match for sure.
I agree 100%, and we'll see. Hamburg is it's going to be a difficult opponent. It will be on nationally televised TV. I guess you want to call it here in on the East Coast or this side of the pond. It is going to be on ESPN, which is the last time we had a game was against Hamburg. So the game will be on Saturday, 2:30 p.m. Eastern time, 1:30 Chicago time, and what is that? 8:30 p.m. German time. It's gonna be a good game. I don't know what to expect. We'll see what happens. Obviously, like to see a better performance than we saw on the first time we played them. It's very rare that the first half of the season comes to an end and you're playing the same team again before the second half starts, for the Winterpause. But that's how the schedule works out. Let's see. Let's go out there and get a victory. Live stream. We'll do a watch along for sure. It's a Saturday game, so we can do it. But I'm excited.
I may not be available, but I'll let you know. But you can do it at a minimum.
Okay.
And people get tired of me anyway, so there you go. We'll see.
Pascal says, we got this even when we lose. We are still good to promotion. Okay. I like this. I like it.
I wish I trusted that. I don't, but I don't. But like I said, better performance, and certainly if we could start putting in performances like that, it's gonna raise my confidence level real quick, because that was a
if this was our standard, I would 100% put money down that we would get promoted, but it's still to be determined. We'll see. Maybe the option is having Gramozzi stay away from the team and let the assistant lead the team. I don't know. Anyway,
speaking of that, real quick, some people would disagree with this.
Okay.
In the sense of like maybe they like a more Moneyball approach where the sporting director doesn't even like personally know the players. They have no emotional investment, and they can just look at the pure numbers and make business decisions. Personally, I love that Schroeder's on the bench, and like a guy like, for example, Cherlinoff gets subbed off. Schroeder's the guy that brought him in, and Schroeder's there just like giving him props and like I love seeing that. I love how he involved loved how involved he is with the team. Also, Chris commenting, drive on down to Amsterdam. Didn't literally last week you're like, I almost never make it to Amsterdam because it's too far of a drive for me. Like, you get mixed messages, man. You can't entice me with little like St. Louis Amsterdam tavern action.
Depends on the results, okay?
Yeah. Anyway.
No, I love seeing Schroeder on the bench and as pumped up as he is. I mean, if you didn't know who he was, you're thinking just one of the assistants. But no, it's freaking Schroeder, and so I love it. I love seeing that. And you're right, he was hugging Cherlinoff and all. I mean, everyone on that bench is amazing. It's good to see that when they're happy, they look like a family, and you love to see that. And hopefully that kind of mentality stays through to the rest of the season, because I think it'll go to a long way to helping us get promoted with that kind of emotions on the sideline, because we need it. We need the fans, we need the players and the coaches as well. So yes, this wasn't on TV. You're correct, ESPN. So let's do it. Let's go this weekend. Watch along. Join us on Saturday. Anything else, Jack, before we wrap this one up?
Nah, that'll be all, my friend.
All right. Keep tuning in each week as we bring you the latest from the Royal Blues. If you haven't done so yet, make sure you sign up for the Schalke US newsletter. For those still trying to get Schalke TV, be persistent. We got Schalke TV recently. We got to enjoy the game on Schalke TV and all that comes with it. So be persistent. All right. Jack, anyone you want to give a shout out to?
I'll give a shout out to Formula One real quick. Absolutely phenomenal finale to the season there. Controversial, dramatic. Anyway, but Schalke is going to become much more important in my weekends now, as Formula One is going to be gone until early next year.
Only 98 days. 98 days.
Pretty small break, but even so. I don't have anything else to entertain me and watch, so I need. Yeah, there you go, Pascal with the Supermax in chat already. I need Schalke to deliver some positive vibes, because I can't recreate those elsewhere. So that's my shout out. But you can follow me on Twitter at JMMangan, JMMangan. There you go.
Super Darko. No, that doesn't the same ring. I'm gonna give a shout out to Schalke for finally getting us Schalke TV. We needed that in our lives. So you can follow me at R_KHARMAN. As I said, watch along will be this Saturday for the big game against Hamburg. The game is televised, but we're going to do a watch along nonetheless. So join us for that. And then until the next podcast comes, or the watch along, we'll catch you then. Look out.